Continue with our Discernment of Spirits Mondays. Now we have only 3 rules left, 12, 13, and 14. And these last 3 rules change a little bit in their focus. So far, we've been all the rules focus on consolation and or desolation. But the last 3 rules, they're more general rules about how the enemy tends to deceive us and then how to kind of fight back, but it doesn't focus as much on just the reality of consolation and desolation. So Rule 12, if we were to give it a title, we would say Rule 12, Standing Firm in the Beginnings. And so I'm going to read the rule today and then try to unpack it a little bit, but just before I do so, I need to warn you. So this rule uses maybe some language that today may be considered a little bit inappropriate or whatever it is, maybe a little bit misogynistic, because he uses the example of a particular woman. So I'm just going to read it as is, then I'll explain why St. Ignatius may have used these words, and then I'll just give you another image that perhaps you may find more appealing if you don't like the image that he uses. So here it is. Wait, 1 second. 12th rule. The 12th. The enemy acts like a woman in being weak when faced with strength, and strong when faced with weakness. For as it is proper to a woman when she is fighting with some man, to lose heart and to flee when the man confronts her firmly, and on the contrary, if the man begins to flee losing heart, the anger, vengeance, and ferocity of the woman grow greatly and know no bounds. In the same way, it is proper to the enemy to weaken and lose heart, fleeing and ceasing his temptations, when the person who is exercising himself in spiritual things confronts the temptations of the enemy firmly, doing what is diametrically opposed to them. And on the contrary, if the person who is exercising himself begins to be afraid and lose heart in suffering the temptations, there is no beast so fierce on the face of the earth as the enemy of human nature in following out his damnable intention with such growing malice. So that's Rule 12, and again, maybe the example or the image that Ignatius uses is not as appealing today, whatnot. Just as I've read the commentary here, perhaps St. Ignatius is not trying to get into the nature of women, but just talking about a woman in particular. As you'll see in the next rule, Rule 12, he'll speak about a false lover, and he uses the example of a man who is a false lover. Doesn't mean that all men are false lovers either, but whatever, you can take it or leave it. Another analogy, kind of similar to this, that gets to the same truth, though, if you don't like the example or image that he uses, is that of a spoiled child, right? So if a person is firm with such a spoiled child, then this spoiled child gives up his attitude, right? But if the person shows indulgence or weakness towards this particular spoiled child, then the child becomes merciless in trying to get what he wants, and he stamps his feet in defiance and keeps fighting to get what he wants, right? And so this image, I think, is helpful, according to St. Ignatius, insofar as how the enemy tends to act. So when the enemy begins to tempt us in a particular way, right, if we are firm from the very beginning, the enemy flees. But if we are weak at the beginning, then he starts getting just stronger and gets relentless. Perhaps if you think about the following example. So let's say that you're thinking about praying, and then the thought comes to you, oh, why not let prayer go until later, even though it's your assigned time of prayer that day? So to stand firm will be at that very moment as that thought comes to you, why not pray later? You say, no, I will pray right now as planned. And the enemy kind of weakens and loses heart and ceases to tempt if we have a quick and firm response at the beginning. On the other hand, if we start saying, why not let prayer go until later? Yes, maybe I could. I am kind of a little bit busy right now, and maybe I should have some time later. Maybe later will work. Then it's just gonna kind of kind of continue to go that way, and the enemy will be, yeah, yeah, you should definitely do it later. And then later, he'll tell you to do it later again, and maybe you will not pray that day, right? So what Ignatius is encouraging us in this rule is to stand firm at the beginnings, right? If we do that, the enemy is weak and will flee. But if we start kind of playing with the temptation or suggestion he's giving us, then he just grows stronger, and then it's way harder to